painter once said, "Art is not what you see." This stall popped up, selling what appears to be stencil art. 4 hours later, found a buyer, a woman who negotiated half off, that these are indeed original works from the artist himself.
Most people walked past the quiet boy selling paintings on the South Bank, never noticing the pain behind his tired smile. But when a girl in a navy hoodie stopped, everything changed. She listened. She asked about his art, and then she vanished. Hours later, the boy received a check that stunned the crowd. And soon the world would find out why. Because that girl wasn't just anyone. She was Princess Charlotte. And her next move? It would change everything. This is Leo's story. The day everything changed. The world outside Leo's window moved on like it always did. Loud, alive, and completely unaware. The low hum of traffic rolled in from the streets. A neighbor's dog barked at passing footsteps. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded into nothing. But upstairs, in a narrow bedroom lined with pencil sketches and paint-streaked paper, the world had slowed to a crawl. Leo Bennett lay still on his bed, tucked beneath a faded gray blanket. His wool cap itched, but he didn't move. He just stared at the ceiling, specifically at a crooked crack that ran from one corner to the center like a fault line, waiting to split. His body ached from the last round of chemo, and every movement felt like dragging weight through water. But that wasn't what kept him frozen. It was the quiet, the kind that made your thoughts louder than anything else. Downstairs, his mom moved through the house like a ghost. She hadn't spoken much since morning, not beyond the basics. Eat something, take your meds, you should rest. But he could tell something sat heavy on her chest, the same way it did on his. They had a hospital appointment tomorrow. Another checkup, another sit-down with Dr. Ahmed. He'd told himself not to think about it too much, not until they heard the results. But that didn't stop his heart from beating faster every time the thought crossed his mind. What if the news was bad? What if the treatment wasn't working? What if this really was the end of the line? Leo's eyes drifted toward the desk beside his bed. Sketchbooks sat piled in a messy tower, most of them half-finished, some splattered with dried paint. His fingers twitched. Art had always been there for him, in hospital waiting rooms, on quiet days at home, in those moments when words failed, but colors didn't. He reached for a sketch pad and flipped it open to a blank page. Not to escape, not this time. Something inside him was beginning to stir. Not hope, not yet, but something close. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight, he would draw, not to forget what might happen, but to steady himself for it. Whatever the doctor said, Leo would be ready. And if the worst came, would his art still be enough to hold him together when everything else felt like it was breaking? Stay tuned to see what happens next. The diagnosis. The hospital room was quiet, bathed in pale morning light that filtered through half-closed blinds. The walls were bare except for a faded print of a countryside landscape, and the faint smell of antiseptic clung to everything. Machines hummed softly in the background, blinking their steady rhythm like they were counting down time Leo didn't have. Leo sat on the edge of the bed, legs swinging slightly, his fingers curled around the edge of the thin hospital blanket. He wore a gray hoodie pulled over his cap and socks with cartoon lions, a small defiance against the sterile quiet. His mother sat beside him, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't said much that morning. Neither had he. Dr. Ahmed entered with a clipboard and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Leo," she greeted gently, glancing between the boy and his mother. "Thanks for coming in early." Leo gave a small nod. His heart was already pounding. The doctor sat down on the swivel stool. "Your blood work looks promising. The last 2 rounds of chemo have done what we hoped. The tumors have shrunk." Relief flickered across Leo's mother's face, but it vanished just as quickly. Dr. Ahmed paused, then carefully added, "But you'll need at least 2 more rounds. And this next phase involves a targeted drug that's still under limited approval." Leo frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, "that it's not yet covered under NHS treatment. We've applied for assistance, but it could take weeks, even months." Leo's mum inhaled sharply. "And the cost?" Dr. Ahmed hesitated. "Privately, around £90,000. The room went still. Leo's stomach twisted. He looked at his mother, her expression crumbling even as she tried to stay calm. "We don't have that," she whispered. Leo already knew. His parents had emptied every savings account, sold their second car, taken out a loan. And now, with hope dangled just in front of them, the cost of saving his life had become something they couldn't afford. A heavy silence filled the room. Leo stared at the floor, not afraid of dying, but terrified of what his survival was doing to the people he loved. He knew, right then, that he needed to find another way. But even after the decision settled in his chest like a stone, the night offered no peace, only questions, and the quiet ache of what came next. The choice to fight. The night after the hospital visit was long and silent. Leo lay on his side, staring at the pale cracks in the ceiling of his bedroom. Outside, the wind rustled the branches of the old oak tree near the window. The soft ticking of the clock on his desk was the only sound in the room. It should have been comforting, familiar, but tonight it felt like a countdown. He couldn't sleep, not because of the pain in his body, though that was always there now, a dull ache in his bones that never quite went away, but because of what he'd seen in his mother's eyes earlier that day, hopelessness. She had tried to hide it, smiling tightly, offering reassurances, talking about maybe asking Uncle Mark for help, or speaking to a charity. But Leo had seen the truth under it all. They had nothing left to give, nothing left to borrow. Every bit of strength, money, and faith had been poured into getting him this far, and now the finish line was moving farther away again. He felt like a weight, an anchor, pulling his family under. His fingers clenched around the edge of his blanket. That wasn't who he wanted to be. On the desk beside him was a stack of old sketchbooks, frayed at the corners, filled with years of his doodles and dreams. Drawing had always been his escape. During the endless hospital appointments, the slow days at home, the nights when he couldn't breathe from fear, a pencil and a page had been his refuge. He sat up slowly, his body protesting every movement, and reached for his sketchbook. He flipped it open to a blank page, then another, then another. Suddenly, he wasn't just doodling anymore. He was painting, feverishly, desperately, like the brush in his hand was the only weapon he had against the darkness closing in. Cityscapes blurred with rain, a boy on a rooftop reaching toward a crescent moon, the Houses of Parliament reflected in the glassy Thames at dusk. Colors bled and blended, emotion pouring from him with each stroke. Hours passed. By morning, Leo's room looked like a storm had swept through it. Paint tubes lay scattered across the carpet. Canvases leaned against the walls, some finished, some half begun. His fingers were stained with blue and gold and crimson. His arms ached, but his eyes burned with purpose. His mom knocked gently on the door. "Leo?" He didn't look up. "I'm painting." A pause. Then her voice, quiet and tired. "You should rest." He shook his head. "Not yet." Because this wasn't about rest. It was about taking back control. If he couldn't afford the treatment, he'd earn it, one canvas at a time. He didn't need charity. He didn't need a miracle. He just needed people to see. And maybe someone would. Selling on the streets. The first morning Leo set up his art stall, the South Bank was already buzzing. Commuters marched past with coffee cups in hand, tourists drifted along the river snapping photos of Big Ben, and street performers tuned guitars or juggled flaming batons nearby. Leo sat quietly on a small folding stool beside his makeshift table, a collapsible trestle covered in a plain white cloth. Spread across it were his best pieces: vivid city skylines, rainy streets, a crimson sunrise over the Tower Bridge. Every canvas had been painted between chemo sessions, each one carrying part of him: a color, a memory, a heartbeat. Taped to the front of the table was a handwritten sign: original artwork, fundraising for chemotherapy. He'd rehearsed how to smile, how to explain, how to hold himself up even when his legs felt like rubber. But the first 2 hours passed with nothing more than passing glances and awkward half-smiles. One woman in a sleek coat stopped briefly, glanced over the paintings, then gave a pitying sigh. "You're very brave," she murmured. "I hope someone helps you." Leo smiled politely, thanked her, and watched her walk away. without buying anything. Another man, wearing earbuds and tapping away at his phone, paused only long enough to scoff, "Art on the pavement? Good luck with that." By the end of the second day, Leo had sold only one small canvas for £25, not enough to make a dent in even one hospital bill. Still, he returned the next day, and the next. He ignored the cold, the wind, the fatigue crawling through his limbs. He refused to give up. And then, on the fourth day, someone stopped. She didn't look like a buyer, a teenager in a navy hoodie and jeans. No sunglasses, no fanfare, just a quiet curiosity in her eyes. Two adults lingered a few paces behind her, watching the crowd without interfering. She stepped closer to Leo's stall, eyes scanning the paintings before landing on one, a night scene of Westminster Bridge lit by golden street lamps. She pointed to it. "Did you paint this?" Leo nodded. "Yeah, all of them." She looked at the sign, then back at him. "You're raising money for treatment?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "Trying to." The girl didn't speak for a moment. She just looked, not at him like a patient, not at his work like cheap pavement art. She looked like she saw something real. Then she smiled gently. "It's beautiful." Leo's heart beat a little faster. "I'd like to buy one," she said, "but I don't have anything on me right now. Send someone back." And just like that, she turned and walked away. Leo blinked, unsure what had just happened. He had no idea who she was, or that his life had just changed forever. But what do you think kept Leo waiting, even after her voice faded? Was it hope or denial? Stay tuned to find out. The shocking twist. The South Bank buzzed with its usual rhythm. Street musicians playing jazzy riffs, cyclists weaving through crowds, and the aroma of food stalls drifting on the breeze. Leo sat behind his stall, like always, shoulders slumped with quiet exhaustion, his paintings neatly arranged in front of him. He hadn't seen the girl from the day before again, and part of him wondered if she'd just been another kind voice passing through. He adjusted one of the canvases, the one she'd admired, and tried to focus on staying hopeful. Then, just after midday, a sleek black car pulled up near the edge of the promenade. Its windows were dark, its body polished to a mirror shine. Leo barely noticed until the back door opened and a tall woman in a sharp, gray suit stepped out, a leather folder in one hand. She walked straight toward him. "Are you Leo Bennett?" she asked briskly. Leo blinked, caught off guard. Yeah?" She opened the folder and carefully removed a white envelope. "I'm here on behalf of a private client. She visited your stand yesterday and asked to purchase this." She tapped the canvas, the golden-lit Westminster Bridge piece the hoodie girl had pointed to. Leo nodded slowly. "She said she'd come back, but I didn't. She sent me instead," the woman said smoothly, handing him the envelope. "Please confirm the check inside before we proceed." Leo's fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. What he saw made his heart slam against his ribs. £100,000. He stared, then blinked, then stared again. The woman gave him a polite smile. "She said to tell you, it's not charity. It's a beautiful painting, and you deserve to fight." Leo's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Someone nearby, a tourist perhaps, had stopped mid-step. She was squinting at the envelope, at Leo's stunned face, at the poised woman beside him. "Wait, who did she say sent her?" the woman asked cautiously. Leo barely whispered it. "A girl in a hoodie. Yesterday. Blonde. Looked about my age." The tourist's eyes widened. "Blonde? Hoodie. With two adults following her?" Then another voice chimed in, a teenager holding up his phone. Was that Princess Charlotte?" The name hit like a thunderclap. Whispers rippled through the crowd. People who had been walking past suddenly stopped. Heads turned. Phones came out. Someone gasped. Another person started filming. "That girl yesterday, she was standing right here. She bought his painting? No way. The princess?" Then it happened. A woman stepped forward. "How much for this one?" she asked, pointing to a bright canvas of the London skyline. Leo, still dazed, mumbled, "40? I'll take it." Another voice. "I'll buy that one too. The one with the rain." People surged forward. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Where once there was silence and sympathy, now there was energy, purpose, and demand. Paintings flew off the table. Buyers didn't haggle, didn't hesitate. They simply pointed, paid, and stepped aside. Even those who couldn't buy took photos, shared the story, whispered to one another like they were witnessing something historic. And Leo? He sat still in the eye of the storm, the cheque clutched in his trembling hands, the faces around him a blur. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process the fact that a quiet girl in a hoodie, someone he'd mistaken for just another kind stranger, was a royal. And now, because of her, his fight had just changed. The internet erupts. By the time Leo got home that evening, his phone was buzzing non-stop. He'd barely stepped through the door when it started, one notification after another, lighting up the screen like fireworks. Ping. Have you seen this? Ping. Bro, you're all over Twitter. Ping. Leo, what did you do? He dropped his backpack and sank onto the couch, still gripping the envelope that held the cheque, a royal cheque for £100,000. He had looked at it so many times already, but each time felt like the first. He unlocked his phone and opened the first link. Princess Charlotte makes anonymous visit to young artist's stall, leaves behind a £100,000 cheque. Underneath was a blurry photo someone had taken. Leo, sitting behind his table, the suited aide standing beside him, the now-sold painting clutched to her side. He scrolled further. A hashtag Charlotte. Helps Leo was trending. Videos from the promenade had already racked up thousands of views. People speculating, pointing out her hoodie, cross-referencing photos of her with the girl who'd visited his stall. The internet had put two and two together, and now it couldn't stop talking about him. He clicked open Instagram. His art page, which had barely 50 followers the day before, now had over 38,000. Your work is incredible. Where can I buy a painting? My daughter's fighting cancer too. You're inspiring so many. We want to help. Do you ship internationally? His hand shook as he read through message after message. Some people shared stories. Others sent screenshots of bank transfers. A few even asked for commissions, offering 3, 4, even 5 figures just to support him. Then the email came. Subject: Gallery Enquiry, National Exposure Opportunity. Leo tapped it open. It was from the curator of a prestigious London gallery, someone he had only read about in art blogs. Leo, your story moved us deeply. We'd be honored to include several of your paintings in our upcoming Voices of Resilience showcase next month. You have something truly rare: vulnerability, courage, and a voice that speaks through color. Let's talk. Leo dropped the phone in his lap, overwhelmed. He leaned forward, pressing his palms to his forehead, trying to slow his breathing. This was happening. This was real. All from one moment, one painting, one quiet girl in a hoodie who saw him, really saw him, when no one else had. His mother appeared in the doorway, wide-eyed, holding her own phone. Leo, she whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. The BBC just mentioned your name on the radio. He looked up, a slow grin spreading across his face, tired, stunned, but full of something new. Hope. Actual, undeniable hope. The bills, the hospital, all of it could be handled now. And more than that, people knew his name. They saw his art. They saw him. For the first time in what felt like forever, Leo didn't feel like just a patient or a charity case. He felt like an artist, a fighter. And the world, it was listening. Everything changes. The hospital corridor smelled the same, antiseptic and lemon-scented floor polish. But it felt different now, lighter, brighter. For the first time, Leo didn't enter with dread sitting heavy in his chest. He walked tall, a sketchbook tucked under one arm, and a quiet, unshakable smile on his face. His final chemo session, paid in full. Every treatment, every bill, every ounce of crushing financial pressure, gone. As the nurse led him into the familiar room, Leo glanced out the window. London shimmered beneath a soft spring sun, and he thought of the girl in the hoodie, the girl who had changed everything. When he returned home that evening, a package was waiting on the kitchen table. Thick, cream-colored paper, sealed with a royal crest. He tore it open slowly, fingers trembling. Inside was a handwritten note in elegant, slanted ink. Leo, your strength, your art, and your heart have inspired more than you know. The world needs artists like you. Never stop painting. Charlotte. He read it twice, then again. pressed the paper gently to his chest. Later that night, he sat by the window in his room. The street below buzzed with quiet life, and the sky overhead melted into hues of soft blue and pale gold. He reached for his brush, dipped it into paint, and pressed the first stroke onto a new canvas. Because now the fight was over, and his story was just beginning. But what do you think? Can one small act of kindness truly change a life the way it did for Leo? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.